You are very welcome to today's video. If you're in a hurry, I'm going to give you the bottom line now. Is there a new mutation in the United Kingdom? Yes, there is. Is this spreading rapidly through parts of the United Kingdom? Yes, it is. Is there evidence that it spread widely overseas? Not yet. Has this got implications for restricting travel from the UK? In my view, it has. Is this causing more severe disease than the previous forms of coronavirus that don't have this change and mutation in it? No, there's no evidence that it's causing more severe disease. Does this mean that this form of the virus, this mutated form of the virus, will be resistant to the vaccine? I believe it does not mean it will be resistant to the vaccine. I believe the vaccine will still work. So if you need to leave us now, thank you for coming. And if you want to stay, let's go on to the details now. Now, COVID-19, new coronavirus variant, is identified in the UK. So this is definite now. Now, this was in the popular press yesterday and from the Prime Minister's briefing and things. Unfortunately, there's one medical journal has reported on it. The British Medical Journal has reported on this. So we're able to give something fairly definitive. Well, it's fairly quick reaction from the British Medical Journal, but it is reaction from the British Medical Journal. So we're not just going from the popular press, which I always like to go back to original sources as much as I can. Is this new virus driving infections in the southeast? I'm afraid it is. Now, the areas that are most affected at the moment are those that have gone into tier 4. So there's a bit there, and it's this area here, London and the southeast of England, where this new variant is spreading and where cases are increasing. It has unfortunately spread to other parts of the United Kingdom. We know this already. So this is from the British Medical Journal. What do we know? Well, it's been given this snappy title here, VUI 202012/01. I think that's just a code. It doesn't stand for anything as far as I know. But that's the title it's been given. I expect we'll come up with something better than that. So this is the variant under investigation. Now, it has to be stressed that we don't know everything about this by any means. We just believe so far that it's more transmissible. And it looks like that's probably all it is. It's more transmissible, but of course that's a problem because we're in the middle of winter here in the United Kingdom, and that is a problem. If it's more transmissible, that is an issue. It's defined by a set of 17 different mutations. Now, these aren't all in the public domain yet, but some are, and I'll be telling you about them. The most significant is this one, N501Y. Now, I'm going to tell you what this means in detail later on if you want to stick around. But that's the mutation. Basically, what it means is, in the spike protein, the spike protein is made up of sequences of amino acids. And this is the 501st amino acid. And it's been changed from the N form to the Y form. That's what it means. So it's one change in an amino acid in the spike protein, which is the most significant part of this mutation. But of course, if it's in the spike protein, that bit that actually infects into the cells, then that can make it more transmissible. That's what seems to be happening. So the most significant of the 17 mutations is this N501Y, and the N amino acid has been changed to a Y amino acid. That is what has happened. More on that if you want to stick around. And it affects the spike protein. That's why this is potentially a problem, and in fact is a problem. The reason I'm telling you this is more transmissible is Chris Whitty, the Chief Medical Officer, said that yesterday. We don't have that in the peer-reviewed literature yet, but there again, he only announced it himself yesterday. Is it more infectious? Yes, I'm afraid it is. That's what he has said. Unfortunately, it is more infectious. Just really important to clarify this. More infectious means it can spread from person to person more readily. As far as we know, the people that get the infection do not get any sicker. And I can see no reason why it should affect the validity or the efficacy of the vaccine, but more on that as well as we go on. Now, how was the variant detected? Well, we have this COVID Genomics UK consortium in the UK. Now, this is comprised of all the public health agencies, the Wellcome Sanger Institutes, and 12 academic institutions. So basically, this is a conglomeration started by the government of all the main genetic brains in the country. So it's pretty good stuff. And they were already working on the 100,000 genome project to sequence the genomes of 100,000 people. Then in April, the government set them to work, set up an infectious diseases division as well. So this is what's been analysing the genome of the virus, the genetic sequence in the virus. So they've sort of diversified into that, but the data that they're producing is good. And they do random genetic sequencing of positive samples around the UK. Now, random doesn't mean it's random, like I would sort of randomly go for a pint or randomly go for breakfast. Randomly means that the places and the samples that are chosen are by random allocation, therefore they're not subject to human sensitivity, therefore they will more accurately reflect the overall national position. So random in the scientific sense of the word there. Random is a good word in that sense. Set up in April 20, so far it's sequenced 140,000 viral genomes. Quite impressive, 140,000. Viral samples have been fully sequenced to see what their genetics is. And they use this data to track outbreaks, identify various viruses, variant viruses, and they publish results weekly. Now, they claim to publish the results weekly. I've put in old results weekly because the data that they do publish there, I think it was last updated in September. So it is published. There is full transparency. But understandably, they don't want to push out results before they're sure of them. So not knocking it at all, but it means you can't. It means it's hard to follow up the precise data unless you are in that circle. But with no reason to suspect there's a problem, there isn't. Right. So data's published there. Good. How common is this virus now? As of this variant, this mutation, how common is it? As of the 13th of December. 1,100 different local. There was 1,108 times it was sequenced, so it was recognised that many times. 60 different local authorities. Now, of course, it's way more prevalent than this. And this paper was published 2-3 days ago, so already it's much more prevalent than this. So I've interspersed some more up-to-date data as well. Sunday the 20th, today, 60% of new cases in London are this new mutation. This is why it's spreading so rapidly. This is why the government has put London into this new tier 4, which is essentially a complete lockdown at London and those areas of the southeast of England that I showed you. Now, quite distressing to see video pictures on the news today of people basically crowding on London train stations to get out of London before the lockdown was imposed. And then people would be on trains. We know the ventilation on trains is not what we'd like it to be. Therefore, it is now safe to assume that these people from London have taken this virus to all parts of the United Kingdom. And we know it's spreading in other parts of the United Kingdom. So, for example, we know that it's seeded every part of Wales. This is a report today, so it's in various places in Wales. Relatively low prevalence, but because it's been seeded, it can spread. These can now easily develop into clusters, and each case can now develop into a cluster much more readily than it could with the non-mutated old form of the virus. Now, Netherlands, Italy, Austria, Belgium have banned flights from the UK. Eurostar from London to Belgium is also closed. So Netherlands don't want Brits flying there, Italy, Austria, Belgium so far. And by the time you're watching this video, I'm pretty sure that France and Germany will also have banned all flights from the UK. Now, as far as we know, this virus has not been sequenced in the Netherlands, Italy, Austria, anywhere else. As far as we know, this virus has not been sequenced in the Americas. But we do know this virus has been around since September. So it's had plenty of time to spread. And the reason they've picked it up is the Genomics England are very vigilant in monitoring the viral genome in the UK. other countries aren't as vigilant, so other countries won't know as much about the viral genome sequence. They do, some of course, but in England it's done randomly and logically, so we are more likely to pick it up. So given that it's been September, given that there's been international travel, is this virus already in Canada? Is it already in the United States? I do hope not, but I suspect, well, I know it could be, but no point speculating. We simply don't have the data. But the virus was first spotted in late September. Now it's 20% of the virus is sequenced in Norfolk, in the east of England, 10% in Essex, 3% in Suffolk. So it's already becoming more prevalent than the previous forms of the virus. No data to suggest that it's imported. So we don't know, but it could well be that this virus arose in Kent, in England. We don't know for sure yet, but there's no data to suggest it's imported. And I was very reassured to hear that, because when I first heard about this, I was concerned that it could have leaked out from the mink contagion in Denmark. But the government are now saying there's no evidence that it's imported, so we believe that is not the case. This does look like it's a mutation that's originated in the United Kingdom. And I just want to say I fully support these flight bans. Now, back in February, March, we were on this channel, if you want to go back and look at the videos all that time ago, we were bemoaning the fact that flights from China were not completely, utterly stopped. If there had been, in my view, there'd be no pandemic. The flights weren't stopped. The World Health Organization didn't advocate stopping flights in February. I think it was March until they advocated that. Way too late. We need to stop flights from the UK now, because we don't want to seed the rest of the world with this more transmissible form of the virus. And if you watched yesterday's video, you learned that the vaccines are so close now. There's not that long to suffer this. We really do need to stop it spreading from the UK to other parts of the world. All parts of the world, perhaps thinking especially about poorer parts of the world that are less able to cope. And of course, we don't want the situation in the United States to be any more desperate than it currently is. Has a similar mutation arisen in the United States that's driving transmission? We don't know that. I'm not aware of any sequencing evidence for that. I'm sure sequencing surveillance has been done in the States, but this has been discovered in the UK, and we don't want it to spread any further. Does this variant spread more quickly? Yes, we know it does. Initially, it was a correlation. So initially, what people noticed, what the Genomics England noticed, was that this area here, where there's more spread in London and the south east of England, they noticed that the rates of increase there in those areas had dramatically increased. There was a rapid increase in areas. And they also noticed that these were the areas which had highest numbers of the new mutation. So originally this was a correlation. We now believe it was a causal factor, that this spike in increasing cases in the southeast of England and in London is driven by this new mutation. So it started as a correlation. It's now, the Chief Medical Officer now believes it's a causal relationship. So does it spread more quickly? I'm afraid it does. Up to 70% more infectious, and that raises the R value by 0.4, which could give us a doubling times of under 2 weeks. So obviously if the R value was 1, we get no spread. The mere fact that it's this new type of the virus, even if all precautions are the same, that means R equals 1.4, which means we get exponential spread. It is so important now, with vaccines being so close, that we really just hunker down for this next few weeks until the vaccines come, because we're so close now. Critical questions here. Is the new variant more dangerous? We believe not. We believe not. Porton Down, the Biological Institute in the UK, where they do all this kind of stuff, is currently exploring that now. But so far it's looking like it is not more virulent. Let me put this more precisely. As of now, we have no evidence that it's more virulent. That's the factual statement. Do I suspect it's going to be more virulent? Well, from what we know about previous mutations of the SARS coronavirus 2, no, I don't expect it to be. So we have no evidence that it is, and personally I don't expect it to be, but based on quite a lot of evidence, which I might show you. We'll see how we go. Will the vaccine still work? My view is yes, it will. My view. Again, there's no evidence that it won't. Now, the change in the... If you watched yesterday's video, we know about the spike proteins. So now these spike proteins have mutated. They're going to be a slightly different shape. Just a slightly different shape. Is that going to affect the ability of the neutralizing antibodies to bind onto them? Well, it may. It may. I suspect they'll still bind to a degree, but it may affect that. It may. It may not, but it may. But if you watch yesterday's video, you'll see so much evidence when we looked at the Oxford vaccine that, yeah, neutralizing antibodies are part of the immune response. But also we have agglutinating antibodies that clump all the viruses together. We also have sensitized T cells, which destroy virally infected cells. We have sensitized natural killer cells, which will kill virally infected cells. We have neutrophils, which are phagocytic. Remember this cell-eating process. We have macrophages and monocytes, which are also phagocytic and will eat these clumps of virus. So the immune system is working in many ways at many levels, not just neutralizing antibodies. So, for example, if we raise antibodies to this part of the protein here, or this part of the virus here, or this part of the virus here, then all of these can still have immunological activity. So I see no reason at all to suspect that the vaccine will not work just as well as it did, essentially just as well as it did. And I'm not too concerned about that at the moment. Right, I think we'll leave this one there with that news. We'll see how we go. I was going to do lots on sort of the biology of mutations, but I always go on a bit longer than I thought. We might do that as a separate video. We'll leave that one for today. I'm just going to show you some pictures from Eric in the Netherlands. You know, people are sending pictures in that show us their experience of the pandemic. So this is from the Netherlands. So this is a playground. So good to see plenty of information being given there. What else have we got? Oh yeah, a work site. So this is good. Instructions for people going to work. Don't come to work with a fever or a runny nose, I guess. Social distance, hand washing. I love infographics. They all kind of make sense. That one there's don't share tools in case they're contaminated. Keep your hands clean. And you can also log into work there in case there's a problem. So I thought that was quite a nice comprehensive infographic. Eric's saying that because of the lockdown, pop-up, these are shut through the day I guess, but pop-up shops are like coming all over the place, so these are like containers, because you can't dine in to facilitate takeaway. Now this is interesting. This is interesting. So Eric has bought a carbon dioxide meter. Now the reason that this is important is that if the carbon dioxide levels are higher in a poorly ventilated room with several people in it, that means there's more exhaled carbon dioxide in the air. That means there's also more exhaled, potentially, droplets with viral particles in it. So in multiple occupancy areas, such as supermarkets, work areas, offices, whatever it is, we have to make sure the carbon dioxide levels are low. So what Eric did was he set his meter overnight, so 720 is about normal. I guess that's about normal fresh air level. Then he woke up in the morning and gone up to that, much higher. Now it doesn't matter It's not going to do Eric's physiology any harm at that level, but and it didn't matter because presumably he was sleeping alone or just with his usual sleeping partner. He doesn't say, but someone else in his bubble. That's the main thing. But even if he was on his own or with one other person, doesn't matter because that's closed to his household. But if it was a multiple occupancy situation, then the fact that that carbon dioxide level there has gone up would mean that there's more droplets and other exhaled components in the air. So I think monitoring carbon dioxide levels in public places is actually a really good idea, and I'm glad Eric sent that in. So that's us for this video. The bottom line really is we've just got to be so much more vigilant. We have to do all of these things in the ventilation, but more so because the virus or a strain of the virus that's now spreading is more transmissible. And we know this virus is already in Scotland and other parts of England as well, albeit at lower frequencies in the southeast of England. And really what it means is that you have to assume that anyone you come into contact with is infectious from outside your household bubble. And also, I'm afraid it also means that you have to behave as if you are infectious. Because as we said yesterday, I'm expecting mass vaccination to begin in January. So that's where we are with that mutation in England at the moment. Thanks for watching, of course, as always.